Muted.
We are going to go ahead and record this webinar today, so we're going to start the recording now. So today's webinar, Pump Up PE, Fitness Assessments in Illinois, will focus on looking at tools, resources, and the information you need to implement fitness assessments in Illinois schools this year. So I wanted to first, my name is Jana Simon. I'm going to introduce myself and do a little housekeeping on the webinar, and then go into talk about who our presenters are. So everyone should have a sidebar with your webinar programming. If you see there's some materials that we've attached to the material handouts section of your sidebar. So if you look there, you'll be able to download those materials for future use. And also in the chat feature, you can submit your questions in the chat or in the questions box, and we will answer those at the end of the webinar. So feel free to type those in throughout, and we will try to get to everyone's questions during the Q&A section at the end of the presentation today. So my name is Jana Simon. I'm a program manager here at the Illinois Public Health Institute in our Center for Policy and Partnership Initiatives. And IPHI has had the fortunate opportunity of both promoting enhanced physical education as well as helping to staff some of the task forces related to enhanced PE and fitness assessments in Illinois. And so I will be moderating today's webinar as well as presenting a little bit of information about some national resources to support fitness assessment. But let me go ahead and introduce who our other presenters will be. I'd like to, first of all, thank the Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Department of Public Health for co-hosting this webinar with us today. And speaking from the Illinois State Board of Education will be Sean Bax, who is the Principal Education Consultant for Nutrition and Wellness Programs at ISB. We will also have Dr. Dale Brown, who's a Professor of Exercise Physiology at the School of Kinesiology and Recreation at Illinois State University in Normal, as well as Marcy Siegel, who's a Pump Up PE teacher trainer and adjunct instructor and university supervisor at Benedictine University. So I'm excited that all of us will be presenting today, and again, if you can insert any questions you have into the chat box throughout, we will answer those at the end. So today's webinar objectives, we'd like to increase the understanding of Illinois fitness assessment requirements for all of you who are joining us today. We want to increase awareness about the Presidential Youth Fitness Program as a tool for fitness education and assessment. And we want to increase knowledge on the meaningful implementation of fitness testing in Illinois. So this webinar focuses on fitness assessments. How did we get there? Many of you may know that there was a new law passed. It was Public Act 980859, and it followed recommendations from the Enhanced PE Task Force. The legislature passed a new law requiring fitness assessments to help measure the impact of State Goal 20 in the learning standards for physical development and health. The law requires scientifically based health-related fitness assessments to be given to Illinois students every year for grades 3 through 12. So how did we get here? An enhanced PE movement has been going on in Illinois for several years. In 2011, the Illinois State Board of Education, the Illinois Department of Public Health, and the Illinois Public Health Institute were invited to review a set of evidence-based interventions recommended in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Guide to Community Preventive Services. This delegation decided to promote enhanced PE in Illinois. It started out with a strategic plan and then moved into a task force, which we'll discuss in a few moments. Enhanced physical education is defined as increasing the length of or activity levels in school-based PE classes, and the goal is to have students engaged in moderate to vigorous physical activity levels for 50% of class time. As I mentioned, there was a task force that had been convened around enhanced PE, and some of the couple of images and data were used during that task force to look at what the return on investment is for enhanced physical education. We know that increased physical fitness and moderate to vigorous physical activity levels results not only in better health, but in better learners and better behaviors, which you can see here on the screen. And so enhanced PE was selected to promote in Illinois because regular physical activity is associated with a lower risk of developing chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and some cancers. And there's a growing body of neuroscience demonstrating a connection between physical activity and improved student academic and behavior outcomes. We know that enhanced PE, there are research showing links to physical fitness and enhanced PE and movement to improve test scores, improved academics, better behavior in class, and of course, being more fit and physically active for life. These images here demonstrate the impact of movement on brain function. This is a composite of the scans of 20 middle school students' brains while taking the same test. The brain image on the left is a composite image of students who sat quietly before taking the test, and the brain image on the right is the same 20 students taking the test after a 20-minute walk. You see that the brain on the right is much more, quote-unquote, lit up, indicating that the student is ready to learn. In fact, students who regularly are scheduled for daily PE directly before the courses where they're struggling most academically, like math or literacy, have been shown to demonstrate a growth of a full grade level higher than their peers. And studies have shown that students who are more fit score better on standardized tests as well. So with this knowledge early on, Illinois decided to promote enhanced PE, and the Enhanced PE Task Force was created. That task force was charged with revising the state learning standards for physical development and health. You can click on more information for a webinar we did in the past on those new learning standards using the website link here. And then out of that task force, there were several recommendations. There was the revised learning standards, which were implemented last academic year, and then a recommendation to have students be assessed for their fitness levels each year. And with that, health advocates and PE school advocates came together and advocated for a new law, which you'll see in a minute, that requires fitness testing in Illinois. Other highlights of PE developments in Illinois included extending the highly qualified status to physical educators, although with a note, we don't know what the Every Student Succeeds Act will, how that might be changed under ESSA. And also, daily PE is now reported on the Illinois School Report Card for schools to indicate how many days a week are in PE. So lots of improvements have been made in Illinois over the last several years. And just today we'll focus on fitness assessments. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over now to Sean Bax of the Illinois State Board of Education, who will review the fitness testing requirements in Illinois and reporting requirements. And so Sean, you can go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Jana. Starting this school year, schools will need to ensure that personnel administering the assessments participate in training related to the administration and scoring of the required assessments. I'll talk about the training components in the next slide. Note that anyone can administer these assessments. They need not necessarily be the PE instructor, and each person needs to complete training only once. In addition, district must also maintain evidence of individual school personnel's successful completion of the training and make it available to Illinois State Board of Education upon request. Note that there is no requirement as to what the evidence needs to look like. I would recommend at the very least having staff sign a sheet to the effect that they received training on each of the PE assessments on XYZ date, and then you can just maintain that record on file. Another requirement is to ensure the confidentiality of student assessment results. These procedures and protocols must be consistent with the requirements of the Illinois School Records Act and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. All schools should already be used to handling confidential matters such as test results and health forms. Therefore, just be sure you have similar protocols in place for handling the physical fitness assessment results in a similar fashion. Then, in the second semester of each school year, another requirement is to actually begin administering the 4 required FitnessGram assessments. Districts may also wish to administer assessments in the first semester for pre- and post comparisons. However, this is optional and pre-test data will not be collected by the state. I'll be discussing the 4 required assessments in just a bit. And lastly, districts must collect the required end-of-year fitness testing results from schools and in turn report only the aggregate results electronically to ISB through the student health data in IWAS by June 30th of each year. Note that the June 30th was a change in rules. It was originally May 30th, but ISB adopted the later due date to allow schools more time to test and to report the data. Let's now take a look at the required training and assessments and data reporting. School personnel administering the assessments must, at a minimum, review the chapters of the Fitness Test Administration Manual that are listed here. It is recommended that staff also watch the training videos that were developed by California's State Board of Education and are only about 3 to 6 minutes in length. Links to the manuals and the training videos are within question number 3 of the ISB's Q&A that can be accessed in the Handouts tab in the sidebar of this webinar. And remember, districts must maintain a record of training and make it available to ISB upon request. So what areas of fitness are we assessing in Illinois, and what are the required tests? Well, let's start by looking at the left column of this chart, which will wind up being a great summary chart for you. It shows the 4 areas you are to assess: aerobic capacity, muscular strength, muscular endurance, and flexibility. Aerobic capacity is defined as the ability of the circulatory and respiratory system to supply oxygen during sustained physical activity. The recommended test in Illinois is the Progressive Aerobic Cardiovascular Endurance Run, otherwise known as PACER, or a district may choose to use the mile run test. I do want to make a statement that if a district chooses the mile run test, they will need to collect the height and weight, as that's needed to determine the VO2 capacity and whether or not a student meets the healthy fitness zone. I'll skip the descriptions of the test only because I know Dale will be covering that in detail. But grades 4 through 12 will be required to be assessed using either the PACER or the mile run, but you will only be reporting aggregate data for grades 5, 7, and 10. With muscular strength is defined as the ability of the muscle to exert force during an activity. And we in Illinois have required that you use the push-up test to assess this. There are no alternative tests. It'll be for grades 3 through 12. And again, you'll report only the aggregate data for grades 5, 7, and 10. Muscular endurance is the ability of the muscle to continue to perform without fatigue. In Illinois, we will require the curl-up test for grades 3 through 12. There is no alternate test. And again, recording only the aggregate data for grades 5, 7, and 10. The final area for assessment is the flexibility, and it relates to the range of motion available at a joint. There are 2 options for a district. They may use the recommended test, which is the back saver, sit and reach, or the trunk lift test. Again, grades 3 through 12 shall be given one of these tests, and reporting only the aggregate data for grades 5, 7, and 10. When we discuss aggregate data, we do mean only the number of students tested and the number meeting the healthy fitness zone and needs improvement for grades 5, 7, and 10. We certainly at the state do not want individual student data. Also in Illinois, we will not be requiring any body composition or any BMI data to be collected, but it's optional at the district level should you wish to. The intent of the law is that all students should participate in fitness testing to help them assess their current level of fitness and set individual fitness improvement goals. To meet that goal, in addition to FitnessGram testing, there is the Brockport fitness test. This is a criterion-referenced health-related test of physical fitness that's appropriate for use with young people with disabilities. The Brockport fitness protocols are available free to schools via the Presidential Youth Fitness Program website. At the discretion of a student's IEP team, the person administering the test should use an appropriate Brockport alternate to assess fitness and then note as such on the student's IEP. The IEP form has been amended in Illinois as shown here as number 5. And please note too that the Brockport results should be rolled into the total aggregate scores reported in the IWAS system. In other words, all students are reported together, regardless of whether they were assessed using FitnessGram or Brockport. Well, once you've assessed the students in the second semester, districts are going to need to aggregate their data and submit to ISB by June 30th through the Student Health Data portion of the ISB's Web Application Security System, or IWAS. The data required includes the number of students tested by grade 5, 7, 10 only, and gender that achieved a healthy fitness zone or were identified as needing improvement. Note that because you're to report only second semester data, this system will not be open until late February. So schools have been asking what tools they can use to collect the fitness assessment data. Although schools are free to use other types of reporting software, such as the paid version of FitnessGram, schools can use the free Illinois-specific reporting spreadsheet. It contains only the assessments required in Illinois, and for students being tested using FitnessGram, Once a score is entered, it auto-calculates whether that student meets healthy fitness zone or needs improvement. Now, due to the complexity and variances of Brockport testing, the assessors using Brockport will still need to refer to charts, but at least this spreadsheet includes these scores and the aggregate totals. The spreadsheet was posted just this morning at the link shown here and is included in the handout section of this webinar. For all reporting, districts will need to manually input this data into the student health system. There is no way to automatically upload the data. Here's a summary slide of what data you'll be reporting, and it's also shown in the Q&A document. Here are answers to a few common questions. Is there a cost to implementing fitness assessments? No. The Stakeholder and Expert Task Force on Physical Education assumed that there is no funding for fitness testing, so it focused on free resources for schools and pre-existing data systems to minimize the burden to schools in implementing fitness testing and reporting. The training materials are free, and while schools can purchase software programs to assist with data tracking, there is the Illinois free specific spreadsheet for collecting data that I just mentioned. Can data be used to grade students or evaluate teachers? No. Using student fitness scores reported to the state for grading students or evaluating teachers is strictly prohibited by Public Act 980859. Do the fitness assessment requirements apply to non-public students? No, it applies only to public school students. That could be in a public school, possibly a charter school, and in an ISBE-approved non-public special education program. Do outplaced students need to be assessed? Yes. Students sent from a public school district must be assessed. However, the assessment can be done either at home district or at the special education facility. The district is ultimately responsible for reporting the data for these students to ISBE, same as it would with other state assessments. Can schools obtain a waiver from fitness testing? No. ISB does not have any waiver that totally eliminates PE from the curriculum, and for that reason, any district, whether it's offering daily PE or a reduced portion of PE, must comply with both school code and administrative rules pertaining to this fitness testing. And finally, can a student be exempted from fitness testing? Yes. If some subset of students never participate in PE during this entire school year due to exemptions only under Section 27-6 of the school code, they would not have to take these assessments. This would be in cases of a student taking a class for graduation, or college entrance requirements, special education, ROTC, etc. Students in PE for only part of the year, such as is the case of 10th graders maybe taking behind the wheel, means districts may need to have more than one window for testing. Again, here's a link to the Q&A that contains these answers as well as more.
Great, thank you, Sean. And we will take questions for Sean at the end of the webinar, but we want to go ahead and finish through the content, and perhaps some of your questions will be answered throughout, and then at the end we'll take those questions. So I do want to give an overview of the Presidential Youth Fitness Program, because it was used as a basis for a lot of the decisions that the Fitness Assessment Task Force used. And so I want to give a brief overview of that just so you know it's there as a resource and know some of the tools that might be available in it. So the Presidential Youth Fitness Program at a glance is a national fitness education and assessment program. It promotes excellence in physical education and integrates into any PE program. There are a variety of resources available for every school budget. And it also aligns with the national PE standards, especially standards 3 and 5. So it supports the whole school approach. So there's a comprehensive school physical activity program approach, and physical activity is physical education is a key part of that. So it does support you in implementing this comprehensive school physical activity program at your school. And it really focuses on the educational process. So while fitness assessment is a part of the Presidential Youth Fitness Program, the education process is really key to this. So everywhere from teaching the students about fitness concepts and preparing them to take the assessment to actually doing the assessment and analyzing the results, it then loops back again. So then students with their results can then set individual goals for improvement, create a plan, a fitness plan, track their own progress, and reassess again, than learning more about fitness concepts. So it's really about a process of education, and the Presidential Youth Fitness Program has lots of resources to help you with the whole process, not just the assessment piece of it. So again, it's a process versus a product. If we do the process, the product will follow. Fitness education with physical activity is the process, and physical fitness is the product. So the FitnessGram assessment, it was developed by the Cooper Institute and includes these 5 components, and it is used by the Presidential Youth Fitness Program. As Sean pointed out, Illinois would require the 4, the aerobic capacity, muscular strength, muscular endurance, and flexibility, and body composition is not required at the state level, although districts can choose to do so if they wish at the local level. So why FitnessGram? It combines an educational process with the assessment. It promotes lifelong physical activity. It's based on the latest research on children's fitness. It's health-related versus performance-related, so it's more about measuring the actual fitness and health of the student rather than how well they can perform on a test. It's personal improvement-driven, and it uses criterion-referenced standards instead of normative standards. So instead of comparing students to each other, it compares them to sort of national average and criteria. So again, criterion-referenced standards identify student level of health-related fitness. Student scores fall in one of 3 categories, which is the healthy fitness zone, the needs improvement zone, or needs improvement health risk zone, and it supports use of fitness assessment as part of the educational process. Presidential Youth Fitness Program promotes appropriate uses of FitnessGram assessment as helping to facilitate with fitness education, providing feedback to students and parents, allowing personal tracking of fitness, and to help guide PE programming and planning at the school and local district level. However, it also cautions against inappropriate uses of FitnessGram, saying FitnessGram should not be used to score student or scores for student grading. You shouldn't use scores to evaluate teacher effectiveness, and you should not use scores to evaluate overall physical education programs. There are a lot of factors that may influence all of these things that are outside the ability of there are a lot of factors that influence physical fitness and the ability to score on, meet healthy fitness zones beyond what is done at the school or classroom level, and so those uses are not to be found appropriate. So Presidential Youth Fitness Program can help you get started. There's a PYFP checklist that you can use. It can help you determine the training, resources, and equipment needs you might have at your school. You can begin implementation with the checklist and celebrate successes and seek recognition along the way. It also lets you review your progress and make plans for continued improvement. So it gives you everything you need from the beginning to the end of the whole process, including some recognition and celebration items along the way. Why Presidential Youth Fitness Program? Well, it's free. It's a national fitness education and assessment program. It helps students be fit for life. And I think I already went over this, so it's a repeat slide. So anyway, I wanted to just make sure everyone was aware. If you go to pyfp.org, there is a note you do need to log in now. It's very simple to create an account, and it's free. But once you have an account, you can log in and access all of the resources, materials. As Sean mentioned, the fitness testing protocols and the manuals are all on there as well. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Dale. So Dr. Dale Brown from ISU. Dale, you can go ahead and take it over.
Thanks, Jana. Good afternoon, everyone. From a fitness testing standpoint, fitness assessments are important and will help in several ways. For students, we know that it will help teach them how to assess their fitness level, set goals for improvement, monitor progress in reaching their goals. We know for PE teachers, the focus is on developing physically literate students with the skills for lifelong fitness and health through the improvement of health-related fitness assessments for all kids. Those fitness assessments reinforce goals to teach students the impact of physical activity on brain function and other disease processes. We also know that physical fitness assessments will help physical education teachers meet state goal number 20. Additionally, assessments will results will help inform instruction and give information back regarding students in terms of where they might need particular improvement and able to adjust curriculum as a result of that. For the state, fitness assessments create a state fitness data system to help track how well Illinois is doing in helping to improve kids being fit, and how we also can work to help continue to improve them. For the public, will allow parents and the public and health physical education advocates to regularly monitor fitness levels over time. Physical fitness testing is important because it provides a snapshot or a window by which we can look into how one's body is functioning. The data obtained from physical fitness testing can be used to establish baseline levels of physical ability, monitor changes that occur over time, and track progress achieved. Physical fitness testing can be used to determine health status, look at injuries, disease risk, current fitness levels, personal fitness goal setting, and a variety of other functions for physical fitness testing. With regard to physical fitness testing protocols, schools will use the protocols as indicated by Jana that were developed by the Cooper Clinic and specifically the FitnessGram assessments. The resources, I think Jana's gone through this already. Just touch a few points here, I guess. The resources needed to administer the required test are all available on tyfp.org, and as indicated there on the slide, it is free. Need to register, obviously. With that now at this point, resources include the testing protocols, one-page handout of test administration, a full handbook of testing administration, and I would footnote those first three indicated. And for proper testing and assessment, I strongly recommend that you have those available and work through those. The resources also talk about workarounds in terms of equipment issues that might come up, and provide the alternative suggestions for that. The specific free website you can see on the bottom of the slide through ISB is also available then for tracking and recording of those fitness scores. A little bit of redundancy here, but again, under Public Act 098-0859, the state convened its task force, and that task force then determined the fitness assessments that would be used in the state of Illinois and implemented, and also how that reporting would take place. And after evaluating the test options, the task force made its recommendations for the 4 tests based on ease of administration and the needed equipment and the time and space to perform those tests. Specifically, the PACER test is a progressive test that is very different from the traditional mile run. Most schools would already have the required equipment to conduct this test. It is easy to administer. You can test a class in a single day, and also can be done in a variety of settings. And so again, that's an example of how the task force worked through the logic on coming up with the tests that were going to be used in the state, and obviously wanted to make sure that they would be implemented relatively easily within the schools. From a safety standpoint, as is the case, anytime one engages in physical activity and exercise, there are possible dangers and risks associated with those activities. Being aware of any potential health problems is important. Your school and your PE program probably already has policies and procedures in place regarding medical information, medical records, medical clearance for participation in activity programs. So again, be aware of those policies and revisit those policies if needed. Next here we get into a tutorial on recommended fitness assessments. And again, we're looking at the 4 recommended assessments. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to the objective of the assessment, the equipment needed, testing procedures, how we're going to score those assessments. We're going to talk about correct form, talk about form breaks, and issues associated with administering those tests. And while we do that, and while they're being implemented, obviously we want the physical education programs to deliver the why behind the fitness assessment, so students understand the importance of those assessments. In terms of student involvement, involving students in test administration is beneficial. It increases the students' investment and buy-in to testing, becomes an important part of the fitness education program, and it's also helpful to teachers. There are protocols recommend using students to count repetitions and spot form breaks, for example, in the pacer test or curl-up test or whatever the case might be. A couple areas of caution and suggestions. Students are not subject to training requirements. Teachers are responsible for ensuring the accuracy of the testing and the reporting. Students need to be specifically tutored in test administration in order to realize the benefits outlined associated with each of the tests and ensure the accurate test results. It's suggested to set aside some time to work with students on recognizing form breaks and correct forms, and it's not something you can just show up one day and start doing testing, so students need to be made aware of the testing procedures. We're going to move on to talking about specific assessments here, and we're not trying to insult your intelligence by reading slides to you, but it's probably the key point of one of the key points of this webinar is to make sure that the protocols associated with the assessments are followed. If we don't follow protocol, the data we're going to get is to a certain extent meaningless, and so obviously the administration and the protocols become very important. So first up is the push-up test. It's a 90-degree push-up. This test measures upper body strength. The objective is to complete as many 90-degree push-ups as possible at a rhythmic pace. So it's not a all-out go till you can. It's following the pace. Same protocols are used for males and females. There's no such thing as a modified push-up for FitnessGram assessment of push-up. The score is the number of 90-degree push-ups performed. The first incorrect push-up is counted. On the second performance error, the assessment is finished. Equipment needed. We need to make sure we have a way to measure cadence, and the cadence is set at one 90-degree push-up every 3 seconds. It's important to note that calling out the cadence is discouraged because obviously it's not cannot ensure the accuracy when we're counting out the procedure. Cadence are available on YouTube. You can find those. They're out there relatively easy to find. Students will record, the assisting students will record the scores. Optional equipment for the push-ups, mats, and squares of cardboard or anything else can be used that has a 90-degree angle associated with it to ensure the student achieves the 90-degree angle. A short cone or piece of pliable equipment can be placed under the student's chest to aid to show them how or show when they've reached the 90-degree angle and help provide those cues. Push-up, getting into the testing procedures associated with the 90-degree push-up. Students should have opportunities to practice the push-up and become familiar with the cadence in advance of the tests, and that will hold true through all of the tests that are being administered in the FitnessGram assessments. If students are involved in test administration, they should also be tutored and given an opportunity to practice how to recognize a proper 90-degree angle and also identify form breaks. Objectivity of the ability of the different observers to attain the same results is critical. Obviously, we want to make sure we have some accuracy and repeatability in what we're doing in the assessments. Students should be aware that they need to count the number of 90-degree push-ups and make sure that they evaluate that they're done correctly. For the angle issue, sometimes that becomes a problem to make sure a person gets in a 90-degree angle. There's a number of different opportunities there to assess that. When I get fancy, you could use a carpenter's right angle, a T-square, or a piece of wood connected together to give that 90-degree visual that helps people record those push-ups. During the practice sessions, teachers should make a concerted effort to correct students who are not achieving the 90-degree angle. So again, the practice becomes very important. Directly before the test, students should warm up. The goals of the warm-up are to prepare the body, improve performance, and reduce injuries. To begin, students should be given the instructions. Instructions are on the form listed on the next slide. We'll see that here shortly. Observe students' initial form, play the cadence, conduct the assessment. Correct scores, or record the scores. The score is the number of 90-degree push-ups performed before the person achieves their 2 form breaks. Correct form. Students should be prepared or should be paired One will perform the test while the other counts 90-degree push-ups and watches to see that the other student's being tested bends the elbow to 90 degrees. Student assumes the prone position on the mat with the hands placed underneath or slightly wider than the shoulders, fingers stretched out, legs straight, slightly apart, toes tucked under, as you can see in the image on the screen. The back should be kept straight in a straight line from head to toes throughout the test. On the bottom of that previous slide, very important for you, I think, is if you look at that, there are videos out there. Sorry, Jana. There are videos out there that California Department of Education that does a great job with that, and I strongly recommend you view those as part of your program. Correct form, the student then pushes up off the mat with the arms until arms are straight, keeping the legs and back straight. The student then lowers until they go all the way up. The student then lowers the body using the arms until the elbows bend at 90-degree angle, and the upper arm is parallel with the floor. This movement is repeated as many times following the cadence. Push-up performance errors. As indicated on the slide, incorrect body position, stopping to rest, failure to maintain cadence, not extending arms fully, arms less than 90-degree angle, body comes in contact with the floor. Stop the test, the student appears to be in extreme discomfort or in pain. The why behind push-up testing is important. Excuse me. Doing so is a critical component of nurturing a lifelong fitness and understanding the importance of push-up testing ensures students develop those lifelong skills that will develop a wellness pattern that's beneficial for them. So why behind the testing. Next slide, we'll go into the curl-up test. Trying to move kind of quickly through these. All the materials that you need to have are in those support materials that are on the PYFP website. This test measures abdominal strength and endurance. The objective is to complete as many curl-ups as possible, up to a maximum of 75 at, again, a specific pace. These curl-ups are different from the traditional sit-ups in that they are paced rather than trying to complete as many as you can in a 1-minute time period. Equipment needed, curl-up strips are highly recommended. They can come from many different ways, shapes, and forms. There are commercial ones available. You can make your own curl-up strips with corrugated cardboard, mats, tape on a mat, a number of different ways that those strips can be created. 2 sizes of curl-up strips are required. For kids between the ages of 5 and 9 years of age, the curl-up strip is a width of 3 inches. For kids 10 and up, the width of the strip is 4.5 inches, and those are required as per FitnessGram. Cadence, again, is 1 curl-up every 3 seconds. I'm going to emphasize throughout this whole thing not to do calling out of the cadence by voice command, but rather make sure you have cadences that's available as per the FitnessGram assessments. And again, those are available on YouTube if needed. Equipment, curl-up strips you can see on the slide here, and I think we've covered that already, so just a little more specifics for you to have a visual there. Prior to testing, again, we want to make sure that we're doing a practice with the sit-ups, or curl-ups, I mean, so people can get familiar with the testing procedure. Work with partners, get used to how the partners will work together. Testing process, we know the testing process is going to begin by giving students instructions. Instructions can be found on the next slide. You'll see that here shortly. Have students pair up and get into the initial form. Observe the student's initial form, making corrections where needed. Play the cadence. The cadence is 1 curl-up every 3 seconds. And again, we don't want to be calling that out. We want to make sure we have the audio with that. Conduct the assessment. Students are stopped after completing 75 curl-ups or when the second form break occurs. The scores are then recorded. Correct form allows the students to select a partner. Partner A will perform the curl-ups while Partner B counts and watch for form errors. Partner A should lie in a supine position with the knees bent at an angle of approximately 140 degrees. And again, these dimensions, these points of information are important, so make sure you have those available as you're working with your classes. Feet should be flat on the floor, legs slightly apart, arms straight and parallel to the trunk with the palms resting on the mat. The fingers are stretched out and the head is in contact with the mat. Make sure students have extended their feet as far as possible from the buttocks while still allowing the feet to remain flat on the floor. Equipment placement, once the person's in that position, equipment placement is made. After Partner A has that position, Partner B places the measuring strip under the tester's legs so that Partner A's fingertips are just resting on the nearest edge of the measuring strip. Partner B places a piece of tape, if tape is used, or a piece of paper, excuse me, if paper is used under the tester's head, so when they come back down into that supine position, we had a quick visual to make sure they came all the way back down. So off of that then, one will continue to conduct the test then and follow the procedures as indicated in the training manual. The performance errors, the cues on that become very important, and again, practice and training with everybody involved is important. Performance errors, heels lifted from the mat during the procedure. Pausing during curl-ups is a performance error. Out of rhythm with the cadence. Head does not return to the mat. Fingers do not slide across the strip. All performance errors. Fingers do not remain in contact with the strip or the mat, and they raise their palms off of the mat. Student's head and neck becomes hyperflexed. Trying to, all while doing this, avoid any kind of jerking, lunging type motions. It's smooth, continuous movement. In terms of the why, integrating the why behind it, clearly as we look at any of the fitness assessments, they're directly correlated to health outcomes, and we want to identify that having good abdominal strength is important in pelvic alignment, posture, helping to prevent low back issues, which is very commonplace in America at this point in time also.
Great, thanks, Dale. So now Marcy will go ahead and continue on with a couple of the other fitness requirements. So Marcy?
Yes, hello everybody, good afternoon. I hope you've been able to learn about this. We're going to talk right now about the sit and reach test, the back saver sit and reach test. It measures hamstring flexibility. So the objective is to be able to reach the specified distance on the right and on the left sides of the body. It's the distance required to achieve a healthy fitness zone is adjusted for age and for gender. For equipment, you need to have a sturdy box about 12 inches high, and there are equipment workarounds I'll talk about in a minute. You might also want students to have pencils and score sheets, depending on how you have everything organized for your recording. The free reporting score sheet at PYFP does only have one column for the flexibility test scores, but each leg has to be tested, so you'll need to draw a line down the middle of that column for recording this test correctly. As you see on the slide, the box is showing you measurements where it says right on it, foot here. If you're doing the left leg, then the left foot would be there. If you're doing the right leg, then the right foot would be there. You could also, frankly, just use a sturdy cardboard box and taping a yardstick to it. Some people have also, if you use the yardstick, just make sure that the 0 end of the ruler is nearest to the student. The 9-inch mark goes at the edge of the box. But you can also, some people have taped yardsticks to bleachers that they have in their gym, as long as the bleachers aren't higher than about 12 inches. There's a handout about this the workaround available at pyfp.org. Prior to testing, it's really important to warm up, particularly, I think, for this test. You don't want students to pull a hamstring muscle. I always prefer something like a jumping activity. When doing this testing in a station-like setting, jump rope works very well for the station just prior to the sit and reach testing. You give students instructions, of course. We'll talk about the form and the instructions on the form on the next slide. Again, you might want to have pencils and score sheets available. You want to observe their initial form, making the corrections where they're needed, and you record the number of inches on each side, the right leg and the left leg, to the nearest half-inch reached. The maximum score you are able to record for this is 12 inches. In order to be in the healthy fitness zone, the student should be able to meet the standard on each side of the body, the right and the left. The reason for the 12-inch limit is to discourage hypermobility. You're going to record the scores, and once the assessment's finished, they can also repeat it once if a form break occurs. If they have a second form break, it signals the end of the test, but you should be able to eliminate the form breaks, I believe, with proper teaching, and this test should be able to happen without form breaks. Now we are looking at the correct form. The student sits down with the shoes off. I would recommend strongly that when you are practicing this test, before you actually do the testing, that you let them leave shoes on for ease of getting students through the experience. But when they actually test, the shoes should be off, and one foot is there. Make a note that the hips should be parallel to the box. The other knee is bent, the sole of the foot is on the ground, and the fingertips are just above the top of the ruler. For younger kids, one thing that really works well is to say your hands are like an alligator's mouth, because when you measure, the hands have to stay together. The hands have to stay together. You could also say place your fingertips one hand over the other, but imagery really works well for the younger students. The student reaches directly forward, keeping your back straight and the head up. Both hands go along 4 times, sort of slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4, and holds that position with their fingers down for the 4th count. If their hands are slightly, just a minute amount above that measuring strip, they will not have friction impeding their progress. After one side's been measured, they switch to the other side, and you do this again. The student may allow the bent knee to move sideways if necessary, but the sole of the foot needs to stay on the floor. So I've already touched on some of these. An error is if the hand reach is uneven, if the legs aren't in the correct position, if the knee bends, the knee of the testing leg. It is permissible for the tester to put one hand gently on top of the student's knee to help them keep it straight. We want to see the proper form, which you can see on the slide, and I would recommend that in between legs you make sure that their hips readjust to be square to the box, because that they frequently change position. Why should we do this test? Well, flexibility is a health-related component of physical fitness, that it does relate to the range of motion available at a joint. So educating our students that maintaining adequate joint flexibility is important to functional health is quite important, and will hopefully stick with them as they get older. Now we're going to move on to the PACER test. The PACER stands for Progressive Aerobic Cardiovascular Endurance Run. This is why you always see it capitalized. It measures aerobic capacity. The objective is to run as long as possible with continuous movement back and forth across a specified distance, either 15 meter or 20 meter, at a specified pace that gets faster each minute. As you're doing that, you are working toward maximal oxygen intake, or VO2 max. It is the measure of aerobic capacity. Differences in body size can influence oxygen intake, and aerobic capacity is typically expressed relative to body weight. However, we are not needed in Illinois to collect the height and weight information. The Illinois-specific reporting sheet we'll show you later automatically generates a VO2 max score based on an equation that creates an estimate based on the age, gender, and number of laps completed by a given student. The estimate is proprietary to Human Kinetics and the Cooper Institute and does satisfy state requirements. If you do run the alternate mile test, and I believe we've talked about this before, you will need to collect height and weight. So what equipment do you need for this to conduct the pacer? You need a flat, non-stick surface, at least either 15 or 20 meters long. The pacer cadence can be downloaded from YouTube. There is a CD you can get. You need to have a measuring tape. Really, you only need a measuring tape once. If you conduct the test in the same place, you should be able to mark that distance off, and some kind of cone so the students can see where the 15 meter or the 20 meter end line is. Students should wear shoes with non-slip soles, though hopefully they're doing that in PE all the time. Please note that there's a different cadence and scoring sheet for the 15 meter versus the 20 meter. There's been a common error, apparently, of measuring the pacer distance differently from practice to testing. So make sure that the distance is staying the same as you practice and as they take the test. Before you covered that. Yeah, there we go. All right.
Sorry, Marcia, did you want this slide or the previous slide?
I wanted the previous one, sorry. Yeah. So students need to have opportunities to become familiar with the cadence in advance of the test. That's really, really important. Students should be allowed to listen to the cadence and have at least 2 practice sessions. It is helpful to start the students learning this test and learning about the cadence and the sound as young as kindergarten, even though the testing isn't required that young. I think I'm going to talk about that a bit later. Often there's a triple beep that goes like beep, 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 and that's at the end of each level, and students tend to think that that's an end and they should stop. So it takes a bit of teaching to teach them that that's just the end of a level, but it's just like all the other beeps in that they should turn and go the other direction. They should have some kind of a warm-up prior to the test. Students, it's recommended to have a 40 to 60 inch wide lane for running in, and there should be some place that students who have finished and for the scorekeepers to stand or be that isn't in the way of the runners. And we'll talk about the instructions on the next slides, and then you turn on the cadence and play it. So depending on the size of your class, students should at least have a partner. Some classes you have enough time, or you have so many students that you need to work this in groups of 3, which that can work as well. The students that are being tested start running the laps at the specified pace. They have to touch the line at the opposite end of the 15 or 20 meters by the time the beep sounds. And they just have to touch 1 foot to that line, but they need to take full weight on the foot that touches. When it beeps, the student turns around and runs back to the other end. And as I said before, that triple beep signals the end of that level, means it's going to go faster after in the next level, and they will have to go faster. At the beginning, I think maybe we have this on the next slide, and when they should stop is if they don't reach the line by the sound of the beep, the student has to stop where they are and immediately turn around and go the other way, attempting to get back on pace, but that would be the first form break. If they have a second form break, then their time is up. I apologize for the dogs. Clearly, here's someone in the house. The two misses that the students have do not have to be consecutive. The test is over after a total of 2 misses. So if they miss on 8 and they miss on 10, then their score is 9. If they don't run or they stop, then obviously the test is over at that point. So we've already said this. A performance error is they fail to reach the line by the beep. And suggestions, I've already given you some of these. Use student partners to count the laps. Some of the cadences that I've heard do have the counting in there, which helps, but the students don't always hear that. You can use a scoreboard to keep track of laps. You can actually have someone tally the laps if you wanted to on the board so that students help keep track of that. There are many ways to help keep track of the scores. Why? It really is important to educate students about why they are taking these tests. Teach them that aerobic capacity is the degree to which the body's cardiorespiratory system is able to provide and deliver, as well as consume oxygen to the working cells of the body, most specifically the skeletal muscle cells. The aerobic capacity requires the heart and lungs to work together to breathe in and circulate the oxygen around the body so that muscle cells can produce the energy needed for the activity a person is engaged in. And it's important also to teach them that acceptable levels are the healthy levels, as we were talking about in our state of aerobic capacity, are associated with lower levels of developing chronic diseases, such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, some forms of cancer, and of course we know it's related to heart health as well.
Great, thank you, Marcy. So I think Dale now will go back into how the items are scored, and then we'll do a little tour of a demonstration of what the Illinois free spreadsheet will look like. So Dale, go ahead.
So once you have the assessments completed and each of the assessments, fitness assessments have been scored, FitnessGram provides then the standards for healthy fitness zones. So as already indicated, but I'm going to strongly recommend you download everything in the handout section of your screen, and you can see on the right side, or mine's on the right, on your menu there you have Healthy Fitness Standards, and you can download that PDF, and that gives you then a way to look at the scores as to whether a student falls in a healthy fitness zone or needs improvement. Please note there are 2 different sheets there. There's one for boys and there is one for girls. What's unique about the FitnessGram battery of assessments is the classification of physical fitness scores into the Criterion-referenced Standards instead of using percentiles. The advantage of this is they are based on levels of fitness for good health. I run into teachers when we're out doing trainings and presentations, and oftentimes they don't feel like the FitnessGram assessments are challenging enough for students when they compare them back to the old presidential physical fitness assessments that used to be in place. And that's kind of the key off of this, is these are not sports performance-based tests. They are assessments to find the minimum level in which the assessment then infers or implies good health for that individual. So that's what that cut point means. FitnessGram assessments results fall into specific zones by fitness level. The two primary zones that you will see on each of the assessments are the healthy fitness zone classification and the needs improvement classification. For the aerobic capacity and body comp assessment, the needs improvement zone is subdivided into two additional zones, needs improvement and needs improvement health risk. It's important to note that the amount of fitness needed for good health differs from boys and girls, and it also varies across age. Therefore, it's very important to work off of those healthy fitness zone standards and do your application of the results to males, females, and according to age. So what do we do with the fitness testing results? It's very important, I think, as we were going through this legislation, proposing the legislation, testifying in Springfield in support of the bill, you know, it wasn't enacted just to have a state requirement and have people report results to the state. The big key on this is we want the results to get into the hands of students, and they can use that information not only while they're in school, but also when they go on into the real world. So we want to be able to input individual scores in either the FitnessGram software that's available for purchase, or Illinois a specific FitnessGram spreadsheet, or the free calculator on PYFP. It's highly recommended that not do the hand calculations, specifically when you start to get into the pacer and the mile run, but use what FitnessGram provides for teachers and support materials for that. And as we've already covered on the previous tables, the grades, which we're reporting 5, 7, and 10 only. But again, the emphasis should be on here to use that data within your schools and not feel that the only reason you're doing this is to get data back to the state. And I think Jana will take us a little tour of the score sheet and calculator.
Great, thanks. So as you can see, there's a link here. This is just for demonstration purposes today. So this link right now and what's provided in your handout section are for demonstration purposes. The final version of the spreadsheet will be available and posted soon on the ISB website, but this will give you a sample of what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the spreadsheet and give you a little tour. So this is what the State Board of Education's free spreadsheet looks like so far for collecting data. This is the, you want to open the spreadsheet and you'll want to unfreeze the pane. So you'll actually, at the beginning, go up to the View tab up here, and you're going to want to unfreeze the panes to make sure they are not frozen and they'll move around for you. So the screen is divided by color. So the orange section is your student information. So I will scroll down just a little bit to give you a sample, but here is where you would put the student name, sorry, I went too far. Now my screen is, I can't get to the scroll bar. All right, so you're a student. If they have an ID number or any way that you track them individually in your PE class, you can put that in. But the important part here is that if you put in that they're a male or female and their age in years and their grade level. You can see across the bottom there's a sheet for grade 5, a sheet for grade 7, a score sheet for grade 10, and then a scoring sheet for all other grades. And this is just because the grades are auto-populated, and that is helpful for you for aggregating it later at your district level, then those sheets are available for you. The green section is for aerobic capacity. So here you would choose the pacer test or the 1 mile run and insert your score. So I'm going to, for testing purposes, I'm going to put a female age 10 for testing, and I'm going to say that she did, let's say 20 laps in the, let's see, I'll put her in the 20 meter. 20 laps. She is in the needs improvement zone. Sorry, she's in the healthy fitness zone, so you can see it auto-populated there. So while this spreadsheet does not auto-calculate VO2 max, it has a formula in there to take the number of laps and then match it against the criterion-based standard and populate whether it's healthy fitness zone or needs improvement zone. So if you do the 1 mile run, it will also do it for you. So I'm not going to enter that score, but you can see you would enter the student's information. You have to have the information for male, female, and age in there for it to auto-populate healthy fitness zone or needs improvement. So the white section is the results, and then the blue section here is about the flexibility. So note that you need to enter the information for both the left and the right side of the back, saver, sit, and reach in order for it to be able to calculate it. So you can't just put in one leg or the other, you have to put in both. So I'm going to, for example, tell her that she's 9 inches on the left side and 10 inches on the right, and she meets the healthy fitness zone for both of those cases. And then finally, if you continue to scroll to the right, the red section is the muscular endurance, and it's the curl up column, so you can enter that in, and it will auto-populate healthy fitness zone or not. And then finally, the purple column is the 90-degree push-up column. If you're using Brockport, you're going to have to manually insert those results here in these boxes on Brockport using the charts available to you with the Brockport testing. And then, at the school and district level, Sean, maybe you can answer some questions about this later. If you're a PE teacher, you'd be collecting on these forms, and then your school and district will have a way for you to submit these in aggregate so they know the total number of students tested and the total number meeting the healthy fitness zone or needs improvement zone for each of these things. So that is what the spreadsheet looks like, and I'm going to take it back to the webinar screen to continue our slideshow.
Thanks, Jana. Thanks. So keys to meaningful implementation, again, it's very important that the protocols are the protocols, and we don't have that opportunity to deviate from what they've created and what they say. So the biggest point is make sure you read the protocols, watch the videos, practice, and make sure that you can provide meaningful implementation of fitness assessments. Pay attention to the details by being accurate, so we want to make sure we have validity. If we deviate from the protocols, the data we get is not going to be valid. Therefore, we're not going to be able to make, you're not going to be able to make comparisons from year to year or use that information in a meaningful way. And we want to be consistent. We want to make sure that the assessments that we're doing are reliable and consistent from year to year. Therefore, the data that comes back to the student is going to actually show changes that take place. Real changes that take place and not just testing errors. And it's very crucial, again, to make sure we're following those correct procedures. So take advantage of the free materials and the free resources that are available to perfect the skill of each of the assessments. To kind of reiterate them, we've touched on a number of these. I like these slides here because, again, it's talking about how to use the data within your program. While it's important to report to the state, obviously the main goal is to teach kids about a lifelong pursuit of health and well-being. So having the data teaches students how to assess their own fitness levels, not only while they're in K-12 setting, but when they head on to college and into the rest of their lives. Set goals for improvement, allows them to monitor progress in reaching their goals, and helps to create a portfolio for them of which they're going to be able to take forward. Use the data to better meet students' needs, the requirements. Pre-post tests are important. You can tie that in with goal setting, look at trends and changes, and students get feedback to see how subtle things that they're doing in the day-to-day life impacts their fitness scores. Use the results then also to assess your own PE program to identify student strengths and weaknesses. Those results then, next slide please there, Jenna, can be used then to assess not only the students, but also can be used to assess the impact of what we're doing in day-to-day physical education, and we can allow that to be incorporated into making curricular changes, program enhancements, those type things, but then also get that information out to moms and dads, administrators, get that information out to the public so people can start to connect and get a better feel for the value of physical education and what's happening in terms of the enhanced PE movement and efforts to impact the health and well-being of children.
Great, thanks, Dale. So Marcy will go ahead and talk about some general administration of testing and some tips for you.
Thanks, Jana. I was just starting to talk without unmuting myself, so nobody would have heard me. I apologize. It's really important to create an environment that's safe, and that goes, of course, for everything that we do, but it goes, we're talking about emotional safety as well as physical safety during testing. It's important that no individual, no student feels that their classmates are judging them in terms of their ability. Yes, we have partners for some of the tests, and so obviously you want to be aware of what kind of partnering is happening. You know the students in your classroom, and you know which ones are going to be kind and might bother a person. So obviously you'll try to do good management and make sure that everybody feels safe. You've got to be aware of potential health problems of your students, and most of us do get information about that. If there are health concerns that are documented in 504s and IEPs, you should be aware of those. So along with creating the safe environment, you want to keep the data private. It should not be posted and shared with other students because students should not be comparing themselves to one another. This also goes along with the fact that we're talking about a healthy fitness zone and not trying to outscore or be the top athlete. Emphasize to the students that their scores on these tests are not a part of their grade. They're given to assess an individual's fitness levels, monitor progress over time, and help them to create a wellness plan, and they're used to inform your instruction. There are multiple ways to administer your fitness tests, not just on fitness testing day necessarily, but if you have those out to practice at various times, like sit and reach could be included in station work on a day when you're doing a lot of aerobic stations, sports skills circuit, or jumping rope. You could have the sit and reach box out there for them to practice. They could take pacer and curl-ups at a station as well, either with the cadence, preferable if you can't play that during another larger class. The students could count for each other after they get to know the cadence, but never do that for testing. In really large classes, testing multiple students at a time is very helpful, using students as partners to monitor and count and record. You could engage others to help you with the testing, but you need to make sure that any helpers like parents, teaching aides, the nurse, whomever you might call in to help you, ensure that they have fulfilled the state training requirements, which we spoke about earlier, and that they're well informed on fitness testing and the protocols, as well as the ethics about confidentiality. Use the videos to help teach the helpers. It's also helpful when teaching the tests to use the videos to help teach the students as they are learning those tests. Use the FitnessGram manual to help helpers, give them specific tasks, or help them be responsible for a specific station or fitness test so that they get to know it quite well. And always the teacher should be the one overseeing. How do you engage students in this fitness testing? Well, communicate to them why it's important. It gives them data to check on themselves and their fitness. It gives them feedback about being in the healthy fitness zone. And you can give them real-world examples of how being fit improves their performance. What can they do? Can they dance longer? Can they run faster in soccer? Can they take a longer hike with their family or ski down the hill? And then it provides data, particularly as the students get a little bit older, to build a personal fitness plan and to understand what they need to do to improve their own health. Here you see focus and administration tips. In the elementary, though you are not testing in grades K through 3, it makes the whole higher levels, 4th and up, better if you teach students these tests, make them fun, teach them the protocols and the proper form, and once they know them, it will make the job of the 4th through 12th grade teachers much easier. If you administer them in station format, you can provide specific feedback. I would say it doesn't just have to be basketball stations as it's written in here. That's just an example, but have other stations available in K through 3 that the students already know how to do, and you're sure that you don't have to spend a lot of time watching those. So you could work with the group that is doing the curl-up station or the push-up station and so forth. When they get to middle school, you want to help the students focus on goal setting and work on growth and progress toward those fitness goals. You want to be administering the pacer and curl-ups and push-ups with a partner, and the sit and reach you can do in stations. Also, partners can learn to measure that. I'm going to go back to elementary. Because of class sizes, you normally might have to have partners in those tests as well. And if you do, you're teaching the students what to look for and what they can see. And if they know what to see on someone else, they also learn a little bit more about how they need to feel when they have their turn to do the test. In high school, again, goal setting is very important, and using their data to help them build personal exercise programs. And again, you would be using the partners. How can leadership or other in the school help to support the fitness testing? Well, one thing that they can do is you can help them learn about the physical fitness and improve student outcomes. The enhanced PE fact sheet in the handout section of the sidebar is a very excellent resource to help you as the PE teacher inform others in your school and in your community. You can educate the school community and the wider community as you have the opportunity or make the opportunity on the connection between fitness and improved student outcomes. In other words, a return on investment. If, as an administrator, if you can provide a substitute or extra coverage for teachers while they're fitness testing, it will help to give them the time and opportunity to do this properly, which would really be helpful. So you treat fitness testing in the school just as you would treat any other important academic test. And remember to provide professional development opportunities for physical education teachers. And in a few slides, there'll be an overview of some of those opportunities. It's important to educate the community on the connection between, I just did that slide, I believe. You want to use,
I think it's just a little similar, Marcy. But
I think it's also similar. That's why I'm looking at it and going, I think it's the same. You want to notify parents about fitness testing using some sample language. There is a sample letter on ISB's Enhanced PE page, which was linked earlier, and in the PYFP resource guide for the teachers. That's available on pyfp.org. You want to place information in classroom or school newsletters. You could hold family fitness nights and do some sample fitness testing. The students really love to see their parents take these tests or try them out. You could post links to the training videos on a school PE webpage. And if you use parents to volunteer in test administration, just remember that you need to make sure that those parents have been trained appropriately as per the state guidelines.
Great, thank you, Marcy. So to wrap up the webinar and then open up to questions, I will just briefly do an overview of some professional development opportunities. So there is a Pump Up PE training that Illinois Public Health Institute that we've developed, and we have some grant funding to do free trainings across the state and in Cook County specifically. So this is designed to leave teachers with practical, immediately applicable strategies and tools and resources to increase moderate to vigorous physical activity levels in their classes, use some backward design to align your school or district's curriculum with the state learning standards. This fitness testing module is actually part of this day as well, understanding what to do with fitness data and how to teach the brain-body connection. So there's a link here where you can go online and find some future dates. We have more coming up across the state. We have a few in Cook County coming up in the next couple of months, and then perhaps there's one in Bloomington. There's some other coming up. So you can check this website for the current dates if you're interested in going to that full day training for some professional development. There's also professional development opportunities through a lot of partners across the state. IAFERD, of course, has their annual meeting with professional development opportunities. There's the PE Tech Camp at Illinois State University every summer, and Dale here can get you more information about that when that's available. And there's also some additional, there's a graduate level course on integrating fitness testing into PE at Illinois State University, which you can use this link here to get an overview of what that course is about and how you can enroll. So at this point, we are going to go ahead and take questions. I know several of you have submitted questions, so we will go ahead and read through those and we have about 10 minutes that we'll go through questions, and any of our speakers can answer them. So just one moment here, and I'll get that started. All right, so Sarah will read the first question here.
All right, if we currently have FitnessGram, I'm assuming the paid version, what report in FitnessGram can we use to upload or get the data needed for the state?
So Dale, do you have any ideas about where in FitnessGram you would go to be able to get the aggregate healthy fitness zone by age and gender?
I wouldn't know what that would be without going through the software. I don't use that on a regular basis here at the university, but I would imagine your support salespeople within FitnessGram and who you went through to purchase that would be able to provide you with a quick summary of the mouse clicks you need to go through to generate the reports that you need.
Great, thanks. Someone asked who participated on the task force to revise the learning standards. Sean, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
You know what, if you don't mind, I don't have it with me at this moment.
All right, and I can give a broad overview. So that the original Enhanced PE Task Force, it was a combination of representatives from the Illinois School Administrators Association, the School Board Association, the Superintendents Association, sorry, that's the administrators, the Principals Association, PE teacher and IAFERD, health advocates, I believe the PTA, some elected officials, and it was co-convened by the Illinois State Board of Education and Illinois Department of Public Health. So we try to get a swath of people from a variety of different parts of the school and district level leadership, as well as the teachers themselves and parents. So they were all on that task force. And then a slightly different mix, but similar for the fitness testing task force that looked at these recommendations.
And we have the members of both those task forces listed on the Enhanced PE page at State Board of Ed, if anyone needed to know exact names.
Great. Someone asked, I've heard that there's a bill regarding daily PE, that schools will not be required to daily PE. If this is true, how will this impact the assessment requirements? John?
Well, the fitness assessment requirements still stand, even without daily PE. The advocacy groups I know are busy, working with legislators on helping them to understand the importance of daily PE. I don't know the outcome of that at this point, though. It looks like it might go for a hearing at the committee on February 8th, but the fitness assessment requirements still stand.
This is Marcy. I know that it is very important to call state legislators and talk to them about the importance of keeping daily PE. I actually did that this morning with my state senator and was told that there are lots and lots of calls, and our state senator is going to vote no on the bill. So make some phone calls. I believe it's called SB 13.
There's a few different bills floating out there. So if you'd like more information, I know you can connect with health advocates at IAFER, the American Heart Association, and IAPO. But we'll continue with these questions. Does this webinar count as training per ISBE's requirement, Sean?
No, it would not. The requirement actually, as a reminder, is that you read through each of the manuals that are stipulated within this PowerPoint presentation with the test administration, protocol, etc. You need to read through each of those manuals, as well as we recommend you also watch the 3 to 6 minute videos. The entire training shouldn't take, if you did all of that in one sitting, probably hour and a half at most. All those links are provided in the Q&A to the manuals and the videos.
Great, thanks. And can paraprofessionals administer the test if they are trained?
Absolutely. Anyone can administer the training so long as they review the manuals and the videos.
Great. Here's a question related to the muscular endurance test. If it's the same for males and females, the past there was a bit arm hang for females. Is that allowed? I know the answer to that is no. It's using the recommended or the alternate tests are for reporting purposes. Now, of course, you could use the FitnessGram protocols for, there's other tests in there, and if you wanted to do those in addition, you could. I don't actually know if the arm hang is still even part of FitnessGram, but you can use other tests, but for reporting, you have to do at least these 4 that we've described today. Based on the webinar information, if we can use the Brockport test as can we use the Brockport test as a replacement for FitnessGram?
Brockport's only to be used in situations where the FitnessGram is not applicable for that given student. It can be the Brockport fitness test as prescribed or any accommodations that are delineated in the manual and then just noted on the IEP form.
Great. And another question, how have private therapeutic schools been informed of this assessment?
I believe, as from the state board's perspective, is we've put everything out and it goes to all public school entities and it's posted on our website. We wouldn't have done a direct mailing to them specifically, but we are here for questions.
Great. And then if a student is outplaced in a special education program out of state, does that student need to be tested?
But if the student is still enrolled in a school district within this state, technically, yes. I think that we could probably work something out if the student was unreachable, but we would probably request that that state administer those 4 quick assessments and report the results.
Great. Someone asked, they may have missed this, but for the example of a 10th grade student, do they send all of their data for the first and second semester scores in, or do they just send in the 10th grade students for their second semester? And only the post-test, only the second semester scores should be sent.
Jenna, I think that might be another question in that. Sure. I think sometimes what they're doing is that when I talked about that open window for assessment, because those 10th graders are usually the ones that fall into that driver's ed. So whereas they might be, taking PE first semester and not so much second semester, and they're assessing at the end of the first semester, so they're asking, do they report that as their year end? And I agree with you, stating that that is not, well, it's not considered pre-test data, that they just wait and assess the student at the end of the school year, as close to the end of the school year as possible.
Great, thank you. I think there were some audio issues, so I'm scrolling through these questions. What are suggestions to do about training for the test? The obvious answer is to get better at a certain test. You do that test more, but I've noticed kids lose interest in exercise very quickly. I took over a program which has 3 different teachers in 5 years. They are used to being able to do what they want and just play games. Implementing a real curriculum has been pulling teeth from the students because they're not as interested. Do you have any suggestions for helping kids get interested in this?
This is Marcy. There are lots of suggestions for when you take over after a program that hasn't been as high quality. It really is a whole course in methods or management of physical education, and it's just a matter of starting in kindergarten and working through. I don't know whether this is older kids or not. I can't tell from the question, but you have to really put your management skills to use, and if you have to be more like an Army sergeant, then you do, because the tests have to be done. It's a state law, just like the other reading and math and other tests that they take. But getting the classes back to interested in learning, that is a hard task. It isn't really the subject of this webinar.
Thank you. Someone says, just to clarify, staff only need to go through training once to administer these tests, not every school year?
That's correct.
So if you're once you've done it and read the protocols, you get to check that off.
For absolute purposes, that is correct. We always encourage refresher trainings. I mean, if you're only administering these once a year, I know for one myself, I would need a refresher.
Dale, this might be a good one for you. If someone can't do any push-ups, do they get a score of 1?
I think you look at the scoring sheet, it's ones that they can effectively do. So no.
I think if you can't do it, you get
motivation. I think you could give them a score of 1, but again, I think
it counts as 2 form breaks, though, right? So the first form break, which means your trial of a push-up without being able to complete it, is the first form break, which counts as 1, and then by the second form break, the test ends, so you would get a score of 1, I believe.
You get it. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah. But again, the usefulness of that is obviously giving the feedback to the students to know they can accomplish something, but then obviously setting up a program throughout the rest of that semester or school year to help try to improve those scores for them. So.
Great. And there are a few more questions, so if folks don't mind, I will go ahead and just keep answering questions for the sake of the recording of this webinar, but if you do need to jump off, we understand. So another question is, on the back saver sit and reach, are the toes at 0 inches when you read the test score? The toes are at 9, right?
Toes are at 9. Well, the foot is at 9. Yeah, the whole foot.
So the start of the ruler at the edge of the box is 9.
Right, correct.
How do you record VO2 max? I've been recording pacer laps and need to learn how to convert them. Fortunately for you, the person who asked this question, the free spreadsheet from Illinois, you can put in the laps and it will automatically calculate healthy fitness zone or needs improvement for you. You can use a chart and height and weight to determine VO2 max, but using the free spreadsheet will give you the information you need for at least for the reporting of healthy fitness requirements. I know if you have the paid version of FitnessGram, there's a formula in there as well that will calculate it for you. Dale, do you know where you can access just the general formula to calculate VO2 max?
You can get that off, I think it's off the PYFP page. You can put that in. It'll give you a VO2 max value, but you're kind of limited what you can do with that. So the Illinois version will, as you said, Jana, give you the healthy fitness zone, but it won't give you the actual numerical value of that. So it would be a little more tedious process, I guess, to put it in the PYFP spreadsheet, and then you'd have to record what those calculated values show separately, and you would have an actual VO2 value.
Great. 2 clarifications around back saver sit and reach. Do you have to hold your position at the sit and reach for 4 seconds, or where did that number 4 thing come from?
This is Marcy. So they have to hold at that position long enough for the recorder to see where their hand is down. It might be, if you're really looking as the teacher, it might be 1, 2, it might be up to 4 seconds, but they do have to hold that in order for that score to count.
And the protocols say that you have your hands together and you lean forward once and then come back and then twice come back, 3 times come back, and on the 4th time is what you measure, correct?
That's correct. And you want to have them go slowly, not bounce, 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 but so that they're actually working on their flexibility.
Great. And do you round to the nearest whole number, or can you round to the nearest ½ inch?
I believe it's ½ inch.
I believe it's ½ inch too. The protocols, again, if you go back in the slides through the webinar or look at the protocol manual, I believe it says ½ inch. And does the VO2 Healthy Fitness Zone calculator not require height and weight? That is true. You do not require height and weight when inserting the PACER scores into the Illinois free spreadsheet. Someone asked, where will this webinar recorded be located on the ISB website? Sean, will we be able to put it up once the recording is available?
Yes, we'll actually post it as a link where you find the Q&A. We'll have this webinar linked, I'm sure, to your website as well.
And for anyone who may have trouble, I've always just been able to Google Enhanced PE Illinois, and the first thing that pops up is the webpage for Enhanced PE, which then clicks to all of these materials. Do physical education teachers submit information to the state, or do the building administrators?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Do physical education teachers submit information to the state, or do building administrators?
Actually, it's the district level that would report it. It would just be like any student health data, like the vision data for students when they put it into IWAS. Typically, it's done at the district level. So schools, when you showed that demo of that Illinois free spreadsheet, if you scrolled all the way down to the bottom, it'll actually calculate the number of students by gender that reach healthy fitness or needs improvement. That school can then just simply send those numbers to their district, and the district uploads that into IWAS.
Great, thanks. So within the school level, if you have multiple PE teachers doing this across multiple classes, the school will have to coordinate collecting all that data, but then the district is the one ultimately to report it to the state.
Correct, by school.
Great. What is the time frame for the assessments? I understand that we start around the second semester. Are we supposed to do a pre-test or post-test over a period of time, or is this a once-a-year assessment?
And it's a once-a-year assessment done in the second semester of the school year. So usually we're thinking your assessment window is probably sometime between March and May, and then you'll be reporting in May and June to the state.
And so unclarified again, where is the score inputted? Through the IWAS system, correct? So the district administrator has access to IWAS?
That's correct. This will probably be seen as a new system for which they might need to click to gain access, as it's brand new. It'll be the physical fitness assessment portion of the student health data. They should be able to easily find that, and we'll have a user guide available to instruct on how to input the data.
Great. Is there a chart that shows the minimum number of laps needed for each age for the PACER test for the Healthy Fitness Zone standards? I believe there is, at least from California, that it provides estimates. The formula itself is proprietary to the Cooper Institute, but there is an estimated chart available. It's on PYFP.
And while the minimum is important, it's always important to continue to encourage kids to try to achieve their best, not just hit a minimum threshold and stop.
Are there any disabilities that are exempt from using FitnessGram or Brockport?
Well, yes, if a student is found to be severely disabled, to which neither FitnessGram or any even of the modifications to Brockport aren't accommodating enough, then they would be exempt. And that would be only through the IEP team. And there's a portion on the IEP form now that the first option is that the student will not take part in the physical fitness assessment. And then there's a little note to explain, and then that's where the teacher or the instructor would make that statement.
Great. Are the mile run guidelines or benchmarks still available somewhere to give students a target time? I believe on the PYFP you have the protocols and everything for mile run tests still available. It's just not highlighted in today's webinar. What if a student has broken a limb during the school year and is unable to have fitness testing, but they're not part of the, they don't have an IEP?
Well, I'm going to assume maybe a broken leg or a broken arm, and I do believe I'm not a test administrator of this, nor am I an expert in FitnessGram. Maybe Dale can expand a bit, but I would say that there are accommodations that you could do FitnessGram with accommodations in that situation, as it's not a long-term disability. But that student should still, to the very best of their ability, try and perform the fitness assessments.
Great. And someone asked a clarification around third grade. The third graders, I think, are exempt from the aerobic capacity test because aerobic capacity tests have been found scientifically to be best for typically grades 4 and up. But it also says third grade is required to complete 4 assessments. Can you maybe clarify a little bit about what the third grade requirements are?
Well, this is Marcy, and it's my understanding it's not that they're not practicing that test and learning how to do it. It's just that because of their age, I think Cooper Institute and figured out that measuring their VO2 max and so forth, their bodies weren't ready for that yet. So, but last I saw the charts, there were still some guidelines for what is a healthy fitness zone for that age group, even though you don't have to test and report. You don't have to report till 5th grade in any case. I don't know if that clarified that question or not. But.
So everyone should be encouraging and helping practice in grade 3, but reporting to the state is not until grade 5.
Correct, and I mean, it can be practiced in kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd grade as well. Oh. They're learning how to take the test and respond to the beeps, and they actually love it, so it's good for them.
Great, and we're getting down to our final couple questions here. So a couple of people just wanted to clarify, and we'll just reiterate. Again, if you're enrolled in driver's ed and not enrolled in PE, you still need to be tested, correct?
Yes.
And if you're a staff, you only need to be trained once, not every year. And I think we clarified that earlier. Yes, that is true. All students must be tested. And will there be any professional development credits available for this webinar? Unfortunately, no. So sorry for that. So I guess that concludes the Q&A section. So again, thank you so much to our presenters, to Sean, Dale, and Marcy for speaking today, and for everyone who attended. We know a lot of people are eager to share this. Once we have the recording, you can feel free to share the link to the recording with any colleagues you might have in your school or district, as well as follow up on the ISB website with their frequently asked questions document that's updated regularly. And the reporting spreadsheet, the final version of it, will be available sometime soon. So thank you so much again, and enjoy the rest of your days.